adapter menu so that we can differentiate them from the standard ASP.NET or ASP.NET Dash menu, which are over here in the menu CSS file. So essentially think of it as if we are inheriting, so to speak, from the base menu cascading style sheet and then implementing or extending what we want in our specific menu here in the individual CSS menu style sheet. Now I'm not going to go into detail here and go through all of the styles that are here. You can go off, download the toolkit, and look at those examples in detail and determine what it is that you want for your menu. However, there's one thing to point out, and that is that we've created essentially one set of classes to demonstrate how to make our menu look the way we want it to look, and call that the all those styles the CSS adapter menu styles. We could create a second set in this cascading style sheet, or a separate cascading style sheet, that would implement a different look for a menu, so that we could apply one style to a particular menu or set of menus in our site, and the second style to an alternate set of menus on the site. So there is that flexibility in this model that you can have multiple sets of styles to make different menus, or in the case of another control, a different grid, etc., look different ways. So let's take a look at the actual web page here, CSS adapter menu.aspx, and it's quite simple. We don't have to register any controls here, because one very important thing to realize is that we're not subclassing the standard ASP.NET menu control and implementing our own version of it, that we're actually extending it by applying an adapter to the standard control. And so this is much more convenient from a development perspective, because we don't have to have a separate class and then register that class on this page and all the pages that universally across our site. Because we're using the adapter is applied to all our menu controls. We are linking in the two style sheets here, the standard menu CSS and then the individual CSS menu, which is our look for the menu. One thing to note is that I have, in this case, put it in the CSS folder alongside the menu style sheet. We very well could have put this CSS menu over in an app theme folder, so it's part of a theme in our website. Either way would work. Down here on line 15 is where we actually implement the menu control. And in this demo, it's getting its menu data from a data source file, which is what the standard web.sitemap. And the thing to note here is the new attribute called CSS selector class. And other than that, the menu is identical to the standard ASP.NET menu. And you may remember this class, or I should say this attribute, when we were looking at the VB source code, and I pointed out that one of the things that we added to the initial div that contains the entire menu is a new class attribute that looked at this value in CSS selector class. And if you notice, the value in CSS selector class is CSS adapter menu, which is what we've used over here in our cascading style sheet that provides the individual look for this menu. So that's the connection between the style sheet and the control, and what the control will do is it will go off when it renders this and use all of the styles that have the prefix, so to speak, or are of the style CSS adapter menu. So it's very important when you're creating your style sheet to follow that convention and be aware of the fact that that is the link, so to speak, between the cascading style sheet and your menu control. Now, as I said a few minutes ago when we were looking at the CSS menu style sheet, that you could implement two or more versions of the styles for the menu and give them different names, or use a different name in the convention naming for the styles. And then it's here when you declare the menu on the page and you specify what the CSS selector class value is, that you would point to one of those alternate styles that you've created in the style sheet. So that's all there is to putting the menu on the page. It's pretty simple. And there's one more important piece that we need to look at, and it's over here in the app browsers folder. And what we've done here is created a .browser file. So let's open that up. And what this does is ASP.NET, when it goes to render the pages, looks to see if there are any .browser files in the app_browsers folder, and if so, depending upon what tags are inside of these files, it does different things for different browsers. Now, the details of the browser file are something you can look up and read about on your own. I want to point out one specific thing here in relation to control adapters. One of the things that you can control in the browser class is for a specific browser, you can specify which control adapters are active in that particular browser. And you can see here that in order to create that demonstration where we looked at the same page in IE and Firefox, is that I limited the Firefox browser to being the one that actually applies the control adapters, including the menu adapter that we are using, so that the Firefox browser rendered the version of the menu using the control adapter CSS approach, whereas IE, which is not defined here in the browser file as using the control adapters, did not render the CSS version of the menu, but the standard table-based ASP.menu. So if we wanted all browsers to use our CSS-based menu, we would replace the RefID value here with default instead of Mozilla Firefox. And if we wanted IE to, say, for some reason just use the grid adapter, then we would need another browser tag here in the browser file, which specified that the control adapter grid would be used for IE, etc. One thing to note is that this is at the moment an all or none phenomena, so if you apply a control adapter, it is going to be used for all instances of the control in your website. So those are all the pieces that we need to implement the CSS control adapter in our own website. We have the CSS friendly DLL, which contains all of the control adapters that we saw over here in the source code project in the app code folder. Here, all of those are compiled into the DLL that we have over here. And then we use the browser file to control which type of browser uses various control adapters. We added cascading style sheets, the standard menu cascading style sheet, because we're using the menu control. If we were using the grid view or the detailed list, etc., we would need to add the appropriate style sheets here and then link them in to the web pages that use them, as we did here on line 9, linking in the menu cascading style sheet. The other cascading style sheet is an extension of the base style sheet for that particular control, where you implement the look of the particular control, in this case the menu. I encourage you to go off and download the source code for the CSS control adapter toolkit from Codeplex, as well as the assembly, and also take a look at that ASP.NET/control adapters page as well, because there's some good information there as well as some examples that'll help you out. Also, all of the source code you see in this demo is available for download accompanying the video. So I hope you have learned a little bit about creating and using CSS control adapters. This is Chris Pelz from idevtech.com. Thanks very much for your time.